Hi, everyone. We're here with Lorena Seidel, and she's going to talk about how our relationships can sometimes cause us stress despite how much we love the people in our lives, how much we love our children, our coworkers, our friends, our family members. Sometimes they can stress us out. And we've heard from other speakers in this summit how our daily lives and our need to shove everything into our lives and please everyone can not only stress us, but take away our energy and really keep us from achieving everything we want to, which goodness knows is everything possible. So, Lorena's going to tell us a bit how we can sustain a connection and harmony in our relationships. And along with that, take away the stress and add the enjoyment to these relationships. So, I'll let you take it away, Lorena. You're the expert here.
Oh, thank you. And thank you so much for having me, Kelly. It's such a great opportunity. And yes, we are living in such a busy society. We are really full of to-dos and we have so many expectations and we are comparing ourselves to everybody else. Now we have social media that helps us stay, really under the pressure, right? And this is the time that like nothing ever we've never experienced anything like this before. This is such a new lifestyle for all of us. And women already take on a lot of the pressure. So we are the people who love to do things for others. And we like to put everybody first, and then we put ourselves at the bottom of the to-do list.
Yes.
So that helps us stay stressed. So I have, started this work helping moms, mostly, women, but mostly moms, develop a more peaceful, positive relationship with their children and with their spouses. Yeah. But all the principles and everything that I talk about, you can apply to any other relationship that you have, friendships and with coworkers, with anyone. And what brought me to do this is the fact that I felt I was stuck in this negative cycle of interaction. That's how I call it. And you tell me if this is something that resonates.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we see ourselves, we all want to have good relationships. We start things out very peacefully, very patient, and all of a sudden something happens and we snap, or we if we say yes to things we didn't want to say yes to, or we're short with someone, or we hurt someone's feelings, or we check out and we sort of write that person off because it's just not working for us.
Yeah.
So this negative cycle of interaction usually happens when we're stressed and tired and triggered. And for women, this is a lot of the time because we are so busy and trying to do so much. And of course, for moms, that's true as well. It's a lot of the time.
Magnified. Yeah, it's magnified.
And then we behave in a way that is not healthy, or it's a negative way. So with some of those things I mentioned, we either give in and say yes to things we didn't want, or we're short with people, we snap, we just somehow we disconnect from the other person. And then because we disconnect, we invite the behavior from the other person to match right with what we are feeling and what we are putting out, that vibe, that energy that we're put out, and we create a negative dynamic. And that negative dynamic in our relationships makes us upset, and we keep thinking about that. Why did I say that? I should have said something else. Or why didn't I say that? Why didn't I stand up for myself? Why am I subjecting myself to this? Or why did I let him treat me that way? And then that consumes us. And that's the very thing that keeps us tired, stressed, and triggered. So we keep going around and around, falling off this good relationship wagon all the time. And I don't know if you probably have experienced that.
Tired, stressed, triggered, like all the time. So you're speaking my language.
So what I try to help women do is to really focus on what matters most and who matters most. So often when we are in this, what I call a survival mode,
Yes.
when we're stressed, we're surviving. And when we're surviving, we're not thriving.
Right.
And
How can you
that's
be happy and healthy if you're not already thriving emotionally? Your body won't, it just doesn't do that.
no. And what happens is that we are all making decisions all the time about ourselves, about others, and about the world. So right now, you're probably listening to me and you are assessing me. You're thinking, oh, she sounds fun, or this makes sense, or no, that doesn't make sense. You are doing this assessment of others, right?
Yeah.
But you also do the same thing about yourself. You're probably thinking, do I look okay? Am I sounding okay? Is this going well? Do people like? Because you are assessing yourself. And then you also assess the environment, the world, right? So every time you go to a place or you meet someone new or even here, you are asking yourself, is this a safe place? Can I be me? Do I have to be something else? Am I in a place where I belong and I fit in and I can thrive, right? So based on those assessments of ourselves, of others, and of the world, we decide in that situation with that person or that environment if we will survive or thrive.
Yeah, that's a lot of input at every moment for us to be dealing with, and that's just naturally stressful.
Yes, it is. That little voice in our minds, they don't
Takes a
stop.
lot of energy. You're burning a lot of brain calories.
It's totally taking the energy and the focus away. So when we are in this mode, right, and we are surviving, then we're not 100% present. We are overwhelmed. We are lacking energy and focus to do the things that really matter or to, direct with the people who really matter, right? And often to make it, to make this a little bit worse, right? When we're stressed, we tend to let ourselves go a little bit and we're more comfortable with the people that we love the most, the ones around us. So those are the people that usually get hit with our frustration and anger and stress. So we sometimes save the worst of us to the ones that we love the most, and we keep that good appearance, or we put the mask for everybody else, right? That really are not the people that really matters most, but we somehow really want to look good, and we have all those, limiting self-beliefs that makes us do that. And that's the sad part, because the people in our lives, our partners, our children, or the people that work with us really closely every day end up getting the worst of us. So
how do we decide who matters and who doesn't? Making that first cut and trying to approach a problem that we all have, because when you get tired, when you stress, when you are just at your wit's end, you're going to do this in your relationships. But how do we figure out whose opinion matters the most and whose doesn't? Because sometimes it's more than just your loved ones or the people you know. It might be there are people out there that you have to impress. So what do we do about figuring out who's important?
What I usually say is that you need to love yourself first and foremost. So you need to, the person that really matters is you first before anything else. So I usually tell women to really ask themselves, if I really love myself, would I put up with this? If I really love myself, would I be doing this? Would I be talking to this person? Would I be subjecting myself to this? Would I say yes to this? Would I, and on and on. So always ask yourself, if I really love me, then what would I do, right? And go from that place. And that place will give you the hint, sort of the guiding star, the North Star, to guide you on choosing because it's all about our choices, right? We make
Right.
choices and those decisions affect our reality or create our reality, and then our reality creates the mood, and everything else that we live creates our life, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you, and not for you to be a selfish person that's
Mhm.
narcissistic and it's thinking only of yourself, right? But that's the
Yeah.
one. And then there's the other piece of it, right? Also asking yourself all the time, am I leaving this interaction with this person, whoever it is, leaving this person feeling better about themselves or inspired, touched, moved
Yeah.
by this conversation or this interaction we had. So using those two things as guide will help us figure out who really matters, what
Yeah.
matters, and where we should be putting our focus. And it's really just looking inside to find what floats your boat, what brings you
Sure.
joy, who are the people that you feel like you
Mhm.
can be you, who are the people that you know that got your back and they're on your side no matter what. So you want more of those relationships. And
Yeah.
then some relationships are just really hard and a lot of work. And those
Mhm.
relationships, they can work, but like I say, it's a lot of work. And some relationships are just easy. We just get
Yeah.
along, somehow we get each other, and things flow. So,
Right.
in an ideal world, we would want to relate to just those people.
Yeah, but we can't.
The relationship with the people that, we've got a good connection. But that's not the reality. So often we have to deal and handle, the people that is a lot of work and that triggers us and
Yeah.
that, push our buttons and that pushes us over the edge sometimes.
Yes. So
And
there's a term called energy vampire that's coming to mind about some of these people you're talking about. Is it okay to cut those people out if they don't meet at least one of those qualifiers that you leave them inspired and touched and better, or they fill your cup? Is it okay to get rid of those people?
well,
That's
in my life, I feel like life is too short for us to have people around who are really sucking our energy or taking the joy away from us. And as much as I can, I try to align my everything that I do,
yeah.
every person that I talk to, every interaction that I have, every you know party or event
Yeah.
or anything that I'm committing myself to with that in mind. And if I sense that I am really losing my power, my self-expression, my freedom, my joy,
Hmm.
then I try to avoid that. So an example would be, sometimes you're in a relationship where you really feel like you lost your voice. You can say
Hmm.
what you really think, what you really want,
Yeah.
and you're sort of forced to say what the other person wants to hear, what's going to make everyone else is happy at the cost of your happiness, right?
Right.
Or maybe even of course I have an example that's related to moms, but
Yeah.
I used to go with my children to some programs where they would have a craft activity and then a
Yeah.
snack, and I would always leave that group feeling badly about myself or
Hmm.
feeling just annoyed or frustrated,
Yeah.
and I started to think, why is it? And then I realized that everything about that event was going against
Hmm.
my core values and my desires. So, for example, we are very environmentally friendly and
Yeah.
green, and sort of waste zero in our house. We avoid plastic and all that stuff. So, this event was a bunch of like plastic, googly eye stuff that the kids would put together.
Yeah.
And it was very like adult centered. The adults were really trying to get the kids to
Hmm.
make it and helping them make it
Yeah.
just so they would have something to bring home at the end of the day. And for me, I'm always focused on the process, not the product.
Hmm.
And it's enjoying that experience. And I want the children to do it themselves, not to have,
Yeah.
people all over them, getting them to do it the right way.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, they would eat like, something that for me was junky.
Hmm.
And I was annoyed that they were having those juice boxes and the foods that were not what we wanted. And
Yeah.
I realized that I was like, you know what? This is not worth it. I need to find activities that align with our values and desires. so I did. I started researching and I found this beautiful place
Hmm.
called the Potting Shed where they had everything natural and the arts and crafts and everything was with nature. And it was beautiful. And then we
Yeah.
were all happy doing that instead. So sometimes it's just really looking, and even for some of us, we don't even know what are our core values and desires. What do we want? What are we all about? We're sort of,
How do we get to that point to know those? That sounds like a prerequisite for this, for not only your own happiness, but forming relationships that make you happy.
yeah.
How would you have people work to find their core values? I know we're not going to find them
Yes, no, but
today.
it's not too hard. It's simple. So what I usually ask women to do is to think about everything that they do and they have to do and they should do and they
Hmm.
want to do and write it all down, sort of like a brain dump.
Right.
And for 10 minutes, to just write down, this is all the things I have to do for me, for the kids, for the house,
Right.
at work. These are all the things I should do. These are the things I want to do. And like everything in this paper. And then I ask, just look at this list and what are the things that you actually enjoy doing?
Yeah.
And not that we can only do things that we enjoy doing, but try to look at what is it, right, that we enjoy
Right.
doing. What are
What
the things
lights you
that
up?
we resent doing? The things that you know you're gonna do and you're not gonna like doing it, you're not gonna enjoy the whole process of doing, and then in the end you're still gonna resent that you had to do.
Yeah.
And then asking yourself, what am I all about? Like if I
Hmm.
had, some people very really clearly. So let's say, you know, some people would like. I have this person that I follow, like a blogger, like Bea Johnson.
Hmm.
She's waste zero person. Like you know what she's about. You just
Yeah.
look at her. You can tell everything about her life is in alignment with what her mission is with
Yeah.
everything else. But even like with moms, I always talk about how some families, they are the sporty family, or some
Right.
families are the artistic family, or they're adventurous. They're always camping.
Yeah.
Some families are sort of nerdy and tacky, and there's all those different kinds of families or of women. So when people see you or when you see yourself, what are you all about? And if you don't know,
Yeah.
what would you like to be all about? And then
Yeah.
if you are not clear on what you are, then think, oh, I would really like to be all about, you know, eating well, treating myself well, of, engaging with people
Right.
who lift me up. I would like to be, you know, fit or
Yeah.
healthy. I would like to be, someone that helps others and service, that's doing something that's bigger than myself.
Yeah.
That's how. So you think about what do you want to be, and then write those things down, right, next to this list of everything that you already do and you need to do,
Right.
and then compare. So if I were to be that woman who is healthy, fit, and she's joyful, and she
Yeah.
has, just the best friends that makes her feel so excited and happy, and her job brings her joy, and she's helping others, and she feels purposeful, right? Would she be doing all those things?
Yeah.
So it's then you look, okay, in my list, there is no working out and eating well, or, it's just a bunch of things I have to buy and
Right.
people I need to call and appointments I need to set up and places I need to take my kids. But really, that woman you want to be has nothing to do with that list of things you're actually doing a lot of the times. So then all you do is bridge the gap. So you look at what the reality of a
Oh.
life is and what you would like it to be, and you see,
Yeah.
how can I bridge this gap? And it's not going to happen overnight. It's think of incremental. Um,
Right. The habit changes.
so the 1% change here and there,
Hmm.
and in 100 days, you got 100% better. If you do just one little thing every day that aligns you, the you that you want to
Right.
be with the you that you are right now, and you start to make that shift, make different choices,
Yes.
and see, okay, what do I need to say no to? And what do I need to say yes more, to
Yes.
make it happen?
I love this idea of starting with, who do you want to, if you don't already feel like you have that strong personal identity and what you're all about, starting with that. who do you want to be? That identity that, it's you too. It's still part of you. It's not like you're outlandish saying these things. And bridging that gap, it's so interesting. I do a lot of work with women about setting health goals. And this is such an interesting way to take a look at that. I mean, that's a really specific application of it. But starting with that, well, what do you want? What are you doing now? And then to make whatever it is, exercising more, losing weight, having less stress, better relationships, no matter what we're talking, finding that way to bit by bit, step by step, bridge that gap is how you make this lifestyle change and how you have these harmonious relationships and that body you want and feel great. It doesn't happen overnight, sadly, but I think, we're all smart women and we realize that we're not going to have perfect, happy, harmonious lives overnight,
Yeah.
sadly.
And it is a work that never ends. I usually
Yes.
tell women and moms that there is no peak to this mountain. We're
Yeah.
never going to arrive. That perfection or that we're never going to be the
Yeah.
perfect mom or the perfect wife
It's
or the
not
perfect
real.
perfect businesswoman. It's just if we let go of that, the quicker we let go of that, the better. And just
Yeah.
knowing that this is a lifelong work, something that you're going to have to do all the time. And it is just like any other habit that you're trying to
Yeah.
create in your life. Like we all know we need to eat well and exercise.
We all
And
know what we're supposed to do to have perfect, happy lives.
yeah, and then but the doing of it is another thing.
Oh my
Like
God, yes.
we have knowing, it's not what we know, it's what we do, right?
Yeah.
And then and if we do, let's say we work out and exercise for 8 weeks, we start to see the results and
Yes.
we're looking better, we're feeling better, right? But if we stop that and don't do it anymore,
You're
we
back to
very
square one.
quickly we go back to the way we felt before, the way we looked before. So with relationships, with parenting, with all those other
Mhm.
things in our lives is the same thing. You have to work on it
Yeah.
forever. And if you let go of it, very quickly you will default to those old patterns, those old
Yes.
bad habits that we have, and it's so easy to slip back
You
into.
know, that it really speaks to using your time wisely. And your time and energy, if we connect those as sort of the same entity, you only have so much of you to give during a day. And a lot of that we have to, about 8 hours a day to work, for a lot of us more than that. Then what you have left over is, you don't want to waste your time, that precious, precious time you have with your children, your partner, your friends, whoever, yourself. You don't
Yeah.
want to waste that precious time feeling crappy. You want to be able to be with those who light you up and you light them up. Uh,
Totally.
I know we make it sound so easy. Of course, it's not.
Not. It's so much
Yeah.
easier said than done.
What do you think is the most stressful part about maintaining our relationships? Because it's super easy to like make a friend, but it's I, I call it like the mid 30s malaise that I've found where, I'm like, oh, if you were really my good friend, you wouldn't make me go out. We could just talk every so often, go to brunch once a month, and we're still friends and maintain that. But the reality is, you have to put some work into a relationship, and that's stressful. But what do you think it is about all these different relationships? Since you're an expert on parents too, what is it about these different relationships that is so stressful specifically?
I think the most stressful part of any relationship is connecting,
Mm,
staying connected,
yeah.
and then recovering from disconnection. So
Oh. Huh.
it's we sometimes it's easy to connect,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's not as easy to connect. And then even when it's easy to connect, it can be tricky to stay connected, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need to sustain. So often relationships are not sustainable. They,
Yeah.
we can all have a good time with someone, and we all experience this. Like, we can have a very good time for a half an hour.
Yeah.
We can get along,
Yeah.
and that will be great. But it would be a completely different story if we were here together for a 4 day, stretch. We would
Oh,
start to get on each
man.
other's nerve, and we would start to push each other's buttons, right? And
Yes. The
so it's hard.
vacation dread. When you find out that your best friend is not someone you can vacation with, holy moly.
And a lot of our relationships, they're gonna last for years, right? We have
Yeah.
to sustain it for months, years, and that is tricky. So that's stressful to sustain the
Yeah.
relationship. And then we can, you can avoid the disconnection. That will happen because that's natural, right? We all go through some
Right.
breaking downs in our relationships, or some
Yes.
disconnection. And then what we need to get really good at is recovering from it. So that is
Yeah.
really the being very authentic, very
Oh,
vulnerable,
yes.
very real. The relationships that they're not real, they're not authentic, they are not
Hmm.
vulnerable, and they stay in the surface always, and they're shallow, right? And you feel
Yes.
like you go in depth. Those are really hard to sustain.
Yeah.
And so the more of the real you can put
Hmm.
out in a relationship, the easier it will be to connect, believe it or not, right?
Yes.
We feel
It's scary.
feel like it's scary. If people really know the real me,
Yeah.
they may not want to be my friend, right? If they really know all of the good, the bad, and the ugly, they may opt out of this. But
Screw
the truth
them.
is, we are attracted to real people.
Yeah.
And the way that I explain this, especially to women and moms, is that imagine that woman that is so great and she's perfect and she
Yeah.
makes everybody look bad because she's
Yeah.
always doing the right thing and she says
Uh-huh.
the right thing and she's so perfect. And do you want to go on a vacation with that mom?
No.
We don't want to spend 3 4 days with that person that's always rubbing how great she is, or we are feeling inadequate next to her because
Yeah.
we don't have it together, or we are not as
Yeah.
whatever. So we don't want to be with that person. And that's the same thing for all the people in our lives. If
Yeah.
we are that person that, I'm the mom, that I do everything right, I'm in
Hmm.
control, I know what I'm doing, I'm telling my kids what they should do, I never apologize, I don't admit to do anything wrong,
Right.
I'm not the person they want to be hanging out with.
No.
If I'm the wife that's also doing that, and if I'm the friend, if I'm the coworker, that it's not real and human and vulnerable and flawed, then
Yeah.
people will have a hard time connecting. And then when we disconnect, because it's natural,
Sure.
all we need to do is use those same things to reconnect and really just coming clean and apologizing and really getting complete and sort of
Yeah.
cleaning up the mess we made, coming complete again, and just really making sure, like, are we complete? Like,
Yeah.
is there anything I can do to make you feel better, or is there anything else I can do to make it up? I made a
Mhm.
mistake, or I said something, I crossed the line, I was out of line. So always just really going back and not letting anything
Mhm.
build up, not just, oh, I'm gonna avoid this for now, I'm
Right.
just not gonna call her, or
Right.
I'm going to pretend nothing happened. You know, often we are very resistant to apologizing and we
Hmm.
don't want to admit we were wrong and ask for forgiveness. So that can be really hard for us to do. But when we don't do that, we just really build up, you know, that all those negative
Yeah.
experiences, and we don't clean everything, clean the slate every time, so then we can sustain the relationship. So if we
Yeah.
always clean up at the end of every, whenever
Hmm.
we interacted in a way that wasn't the best,
Yeah.
right?
Which
But if we
happens.
come back and clean up, the next day, or when we are really complete, then you can move on with that relationship and reconnect and stay connected again until it falls apart again and breaks
Yeah.
down, and then you reconnect again and you keep going. But sometimes we experience the breakdowns to the point that then we are just, now I don't even care about this relationship anymore,
Right.
or this is now not working for me, and we let go too far. Often we let a relationship sour,
Yes.
you know, to the point that's beyond repair. And we want to be repairing it all the time, all along.
Now, what do we do since a huge, well, as we get older and as we meet people everywhere, we change jobs, we, move, we meet all these people in our activities. As you find that just a friendship or a relationship in general, we could even be talking about dating, um, a relationship has run its course and really it doesn't serve either of you anymore. How do you how do you let go of that? Because that's a major time and energy drain for us, and it takes away from our happiness and our overall wellness. How do you, as Gwyneth Paltrow would say, consciously uncouple with somebody and do that in a way that doesn't create more stress for you?
Well, I'm not a relationship
Oh,
expert.
no.
I do, with handling
Yes.
stress, and those situations are so stressful.
Yes.
What I would suggest is that you always keep in mind who that person, whoever you are dealing with, who the person really is in his essence.
Mm-hmm.
And my advice is also of looking at that person, whoever it is that you need to cut a cord or you have to let go, because those things happen, right? And just trying to talk to that person, look at that person as if that person was the 5-year-old version of her. So, like right now, I'm talking to you. If I have to say something hurtful to you, if I have to, you know, I want to imagine the 5-year-old you, that little girl. How would I talk to that little girl? And that is one way for us to filter
Mm-hmm.
and sort of use it as a guiding star too, on how to speak to people and how to communicate. Because the truth is, we're all, we are all little children,
that little girl.
adult bodies, right? And research shows us that we actually have the emotional maturation of 5 to 8-year-olds. So emotionally, we're still, our feelings get hurt, and we feel left out, and we feel like we're not fitting in. Just all those same things that we've experienced in school and we've experienced in our childhood, we're still going through that today. And the relationships are hurtful and hard. So I try to always say, if you have to let someone go, if you have to break this connection, if you have to cut the cord, do it in a way that is gentle, and because that will leave you feeling good, right? When you can feel good about it, and you can feel like you kept your integrity and you were able to handle that, and you didn't create damage, right? You minimize the damage. Because often when we are stressed and triggered, our brains are not able to really tap into those high executive functions abilities that are the prefrontal, in our prefrontal cortex. So if you imagine that the brain is like your hand, right? The brain stem, is responsible for your automatic bodily functions, the heartbeat, the digestive system, the breathing, right? So that part is the primitive brain. And then the middle of the midbrain is responsible for your emotions, your gut reactions, that fight, flight, or freeze reactions. And then you have the cortex, so the back, process the senses, and then the thinking happens on the top. And then the prefrontal cortex, you have the ability to communicate, to be flexible, to use intuition, sense of morality, all of those things that we need to be able to relate and to have a good relationship with someone. But when we get triggered and stressed and someone pushes our button, we actually flip our lids. We lose the ability to regulate that part of the brain. That's super important. And we're left with that midbrain, which is our gut reactions, our fears, our emotions, our fight, flight or freeze responses. And then we don't even know how inappropriate we're being and how out of line and how, hurtful. So I usually, tell people to, especially moms, to wait before you get into the conflict and before you try to solve a conflict. So just give some time so you can regain control over your brain and the other person can do it too. And then when you are in that good place, you can look at that person and imagine that she's a little girl or a little boy. So, even in my relationship, I struggle with my husband quite a bit. I have to look at him and really look at that little boy inside of him and be gentle, because it's someone else's soul, right? That we don't want to crush. So I would say that, hopefully that's.
I think that is one of the hardest things for us. And, women, our form of communication naturally is this collaborative, we're trying to work things out. We're peacemakers. We are kind of herd mentality sorts of people where we want to keep peace, we want to keep everybody together. And it's hard for us to, exile somebody from that. But for our health and for our sanity, we have to be able to use your advice and make these healthy breaks. If the disconnect isn't something that you want to fix, to make that healthy break. And I think that is something that is so difficult for us as we're trying to be not only great in our jobs and our families and our accomplishments. We're also, out there trying to say, okay, how am I a great person? How am I a great friend? All these different relationships and social roles we have. We don't want to have them loaded on unnecessarily. So being able to make that break when a relationship's not serving is a key skill for preserving, like we'd said earlier, that time and energy.
Yeah.
So if before we finish up, if you were to give us one tip on how to have relationships that keep us happy and healthy and help us thrive, what is your one key tip for that?
I would start to break that negative cycles of interactions that I mentioned and create a positive cycle of interaction. So starting with rewiring yourself. So we inherited, the baggage, emotional baggage, negative beliefs, negative perceptions of ourselves, of others. We've inherited limiting self-beliefs, fears, and all those things that we experienced in our childhood from other adults who we interacted, right? And that has shaped us. And those things that we've inherited, they are impacting the way that we interact with others, right? The way that we're going to interact with our children, the way that we respond to things, the way that we engage. And many of us have to overcome decades, even generations of conditioning. And many of us need more emotional intelligence. So my one advice is to rewire yourself. Really release those blocks, find what they are, all those emotional blocks and the baggage that we have, and doing emotional declutter. So really getting complete with what happened in the past, getting, accepting, forgiving, doing everything that you can. And I've done many things, and I do many things to help moms with those process. And I've used it for myself. So meditation, emotional freedom technique, EFT, tapping. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Just acceptance, forgiveness, and a lot of, increasing our social emotional skills helps us rewire ourselves. And once we rewire ourselves, then we can start with connecting and always focus on connection first. So you connect, and because you connect, you develop, you create this positive dynamic in your relationship where the other person feels belonging and significance, you feel that, and those are the two things we're hardwired to want as humans.
Yeah.
And because we feel better, we can do better. And that's something that's sometimes counterintuitive. When we're mad at someone, when we're mad at our children, mad at our spouse or a friend or coworker, our gut reaction is that we want to make them suffer. We want to make them pay for what they've done. We want to punish them.
Of course not.
Yeah, we want to show them that that was wrong and they should learn, and we want to punish them somehow. But it's counterintuitive to think that no one, not us or our children or anybody else, will do better until we feel better. So when we connect, we create that belonging and significance, that positive dynamic. And then because we're feeling better, we do better. And then when we do better and feel better, we are not getting tired and stressed and triggered because we're not feeling guilty. We're not worrying about our relationship. We're not going over and over in our head, reliving that event. And then we're relaxing and we're less stressed and we're enjoying more. So then you're not, then you can keep connecting. So that's the cycle. So start with connection that, makes everybody feel good and have a positive relationship, positive dynamic, because we feel better, we do better. And when we do better, we start to experience more ease and then more joy and less stress, less tiredness, less trigger. And then we can keep connecting and you go back to where it starts. And that's the positive cycle of relationship that we want to get ourselves in. And then we want to stay in that, stay in that loop.
I love it. That is the perfect sum up right there. Staying in that loop where, yes, it's going to take some work. It's going to take, as a major theme across this whole summit, some introspection, some coming into yourself so that you can connect with others and then have that support around you as part of a healthy lifestyle, part of a healthy mindset to really balance out that physical. And I want to thank you so much for being with us today, because this is critical as we find that, if someone says, well, okay, relationships, why? Well, first of all, they keep you happy. Second of all, they keep you connected to other people, which is good for your emotional and psychological health. And finally, they affect your physical health because we've found that those who have social support, as in a network of buddies out there in relationships, they're able to sustain these big changes they're making. So all of this is you've explained some very critical groundwork to having that healthy lifestyle. So I wanted to thank you for being a part of the summit. This was just wonderful.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun, and I hope that everyone really finds it helpful and it's practical, because we can really, this is the biggest part in our lives is our relationships. So that's the major area that can really make a difference in our quality of life, right?
Yes. Which is what this is all about. Your quality of life is really what it comes down to. Well, thank you very much. And hopefully if anybody has any questions, I'll leave them in the comments for us. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Bye-bye.